talk to you about the Hamilton Khaki 38mm mechanical watch. For those of you that don't know, Hamilton is a company that started in America and went out of business, I believe, and was acquired by Swatch Group after moving to Switzerland sometime in the 80s or 90s, perhaps. And I don't know if they've always made khaki watches, but khaki watches are military inspired, as Hamilton does have a history of making watches for the military. So it's definitely got the military aesthetic, but in my opinion, it's best used and viewed as a casual watch. The case is 38 millimeters, and I believe it is 9 or 9.5 millimeters thick. Whatever it is exactly, it's incredibly thin and almost not noticeable on the wrist. It's thinner than some of my quartz watches that I've had throughout the years. The dial is very simple. The numerals and the hands are all painted white on a black dial, and it has a contrasting white date disc, which is actually very nice. I think it's well designed. You do have 1 through 12 as big hour markers, and then you have 13 through 24 small hour markers on the inside of the larger markers. The case is bead blasted, which I think is very nice because I've been changing the strap an awful lot on this watch, and the marks from changing the strap that you would normally get on a regular stainless steel watch aren't present. So I think small nicks might not appear as often on a watch that's bead blasted. So that's really great. I will say the benefit of such a simple dial is that the contrasting numerals and hands against the black dial makes the watch very legible. The movement inside is the 2804, I believe, -2, which is, as far as I understand, just a hand-wound variant of the 2824, one of Etta's most common movements. I prefer, actually, I would rather have a hand-wound movement in my watch to keep it as thin as possible than an automatic watch, as somebody who doesn't have a large collection, and when I wear a watch, I'll wear it for about a week at least. So the hand winding doesn't bother me, but certainly consider that if you're in the market for this watch. It does ship on this canvas strap with a leather liner. And, you know, this strap is very, very nice for what it is. And I would recommend definitely trying it out. If you do pick up the watch, don't just throw it to the side. The contrast of the khaki colorway with the black dial, it actually makes the whole thing feel a little bit more premium than throwing it on a NATO. So at least give it a shot. The hardware is really nice and rugged. And the construction is actually pretty excellent for what you pay for this watch. Just keep in mind that it's a very tough leather and it takes a couple of days to break in, and my wrist has been quite sore the last couple of days, actually. On the back, I'll show you the back real quick. It is got Hamilton engraved in the back. It's got stainless steel. It mentions that it's sapphire. It mentions that the movement is a 2804-2, and you got a nice Hamilton signed crown with drilled lug holes. And the drilled lug holes, if you haven't had a watch with drilled lug holes yet, let me tell you, it's totally great. I would absolutely recommend a watch with them. It makes changing straps a breeze. So I have a 6.5-inch wrist, and I think this watch fits pretty much perfectly on it. The lugs, I believe, are 48 to 50. They're kind of long. They're just as long as my Tudor Black Bay, which does help it wear a little bit longer. The crown is a nice size, very easy to grip, and that's obviously a benefit for having to hand wind it. As I mentioned, it is very thin, and to me, that's the main benefit of this watch. Is I love divers, but none of the divers that I can afford are very thin. So I think that having a nice thin watch so you don't really have to worry about is just a great feature. And I chose this even over the automatic because it's 1 millimeter thinner. The automatic, I believe, is 10.5 or so, and I wanted a watch as thin as I could get it that was still mechanical. So I actually have an Omega dress watch, and I think it's from the 50s, and I believe this is just around the same thinness. So it's quite excellent. Here's the back of the strap on. As you can see, the hardware is nice and rugged, but I think it suits the watch. And overall, it's very great feeling for $240. In use, the watch is really straightforward. It's a hand winder, so every morning you just wake up and wind it until it stops. Or you can do it at night, whatever. And it stops completely, very assuredly, whenever you have fully wound it. To change the date, you click it out once, go to town that way. And it's hacking, so whenever you want to change the time, you can stop it. You generally want to stop it at 12, and I didn't stop at that time. There we go. And you can change the time to precision. And then in with the crown, and you're good to go. A lot of times when we're talking about watches, we'll talk about watches that punch way above their price point. And this is absolutely not one of those watches. To me, this watch is priced exactly as it should be, and it functions exactly as you'd like it to for the money. If you could look at this watch, you'd think it's like a Timex for somebody that has maybe never seen one before, has never felt it and doesn't know what a Hamilton is. But I think that's because it's a classic design that's been around for a long time. It's tried and true. And a lot of brands have shared this aesthetic. So it's definitely not going to pop out in the crowd. But it feels really well made. I wouldn't pay the $400 retail price for this, sorry Hamilton, but picking it up on the gray market or picking it up used around $200 to $250 makes this watch kind of a bargain. I think that, if you're looking for a nice Swiss piece, a starter Swiss piece, or just one you don't really want to worry about very much, Swatch Group does put out some very affordable pieces that look great. It functions as a watch really well. It wears well on the wrist, it is very easy to read, and it feels like it's going to last for a long time. In my opinion, this is a great first mechanical watch. If I were out there and I was researching what watch to buy, I would skip the Seiko 5s and I'd go right to either this or this, the SKX 007. I think that both of them are around the same price. You get a diver's bezel, you get a screw down crown, and you get the water resistance of 200 meters that goes along with that. But what you're sacrificing is, this is a much bigger watch. It's 42 millimeters, it's quite a bit thicker, and it just doesn't look elegant. It looks great, it looks very Seiko, and it will work as a watch really well. But if you want something that kind of feels like a nice watch, I feel like this gets you a little bit closer. I don't think this would work as an only watch, but I think it could make you really happy for a long time. Me personally, if I didn't need a diver's bezel, I would pick this up, no questions asked, for $250. But it is something to consider. You can't wear it under every circumstance. Overall, I recommend the piece. Thanks guys, let me know if you have any questions down below.